So here's a Grabian montage. They do the best montages, I think. And they have a montage, and you're going to have to use your imagination if you're listening to this, because if some of this is visual. The visuals are the protests in Iran. There are people tearing down the pictures of the Ayatollah, people driving cars over pictures of Soleimani, people, protesting the government at the top, at the top of their lungs, screaming and yelling. Remember, the government is fighting back, too. They killed 1,500 of them over the last several months, but they're now apparently, it is hard to cover the place, but they're now apparently sending out tear gas, and there's been gunfire heard, so they're suppressing these protests. Here is the way, at the same time they're showing these visuals, here is the way the news media covered Soleimani's death and the government-backed and staged demonstrations of mourning that were put on there.
Qasem Soleimani was no ordinary general. In Iran, he was a national hero.
He was a war hero, the commander of Iran's feared Quds force.
A revered figure in Iran.
It's difficult to convey how revered he is in Iran.
I was trying to think of somebody, and I was thinking of de Gaulle.
Princess Diana died, for example. There was a huge emotional outpouring. Elvis Presley in our culture. It turns out that this general he killed was a beloved hero.
He's regarded as personally incredibly brave. The troops love him.
I have been in the midst of anti-American protests in Iran before, but nothing like this.
Thousands of mourners on the streets in Iran, weeping.
The crowds are massive and emotional. There are many tears here.
He is think of the French Foreign Legion, if you will.
Smart, charismatic, ruthless, strategic, and bold. His power made Iranians proud.
Come on. Come on, man.
While these people are saying this, they're playing in the background, just as a counterpoint, people tearing down Soleimani's pictures, the real people, the protesting people. And are they coming out en masse like they did when the government ordered them to? Of course not. They're getting shot at and tear gas. They're afraid. They should be afraid. But the fact that people are coming out at all and saying this stuff just shows you how committed they are to being free, to getting rid of these people who have no care for them. They have a care for their revolution that they're trying to spread throughout the Middle East. They have a care for their own power. They have a care for their sick version of Islam, their radical Islam that they want to impose on people, and which only spreads death and oppression wherever it goes. And this is what the people are fighting against. And Chuck Todd later in this interview, he says, there's no difference. There's no difference between the Iranian government and what's called the Revolutionary Guard, which is their terrorist arm, which is what Soleimani was running. It is a government agency. It's the same thing. The government is running the Revolutionary Guard. So Chuck Todd said, well, if it's just the government, then they're not terrorists, they're a government. He can't understand that a government could be a terrorist entity. They've been declared terrorists. Anyway, here is O'Brien explaining things to Chuck Todd.
Well, in this case, the Quds Force, the IRGC Quds Force, which operates outside of Iran and foments revolution and terrorism in Yemen, in Syria, where 500,000 people have been killed, in Lebanon with Hezbollah, in Iraq. That organization has been designated legally as a terrorist organization. Soleimani was the head of it. But he's not just been designated by us. He's under a travel ban from the UN. He shouldn't even have been outside of Iran. I mean, this was someone who was a leader of an organization that was engaged in terror. He was involved in plotting imminent attacks against the United States. The president made a very difficult decision, but a bold decision to remove him from the battlefield.
It is the thing about Chuck Todd that you have to understand is Chuck Todd is not a liar. He's a bubble boy. Those children that they have to put inside bubbles, poor kids, they haven't got any immunity, so they have to put them inside bubbles to protect them from getting diseases. They basically have to put Chuck Todd in a bubble to protect him from the truth. And all of these people are in a bubble. All of them know. None of them know what we're talking about. They're not listening to this show. They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't listen to Rush Limbaugh. They hear little things that are pulled out of Rush Limbaugh and sent to them to make them hate Rush Limbaugh. They never listen to the right. They do not know the right exists. They think that the right is basically just on a spectrum with guys like Richard Spencer who are hating black people and hating Jews news and all that. They do not know what we are saying. They really have no idea. And so they think like, well, anything we're doing is justified by Donald Trump. The New York Times had a wonderful headline this morning. I just love this. They had this. I mean, this thing has been a major win for Trump. It has been a major win for Trump. And they're trying to say, well, he had different reasons for saying why he launched the attack. And there's different reasons where they were going to attack one embassy, or they were going to attack 4 embassies, or that he was just a terrorist. I mean, they're all the same reason, really. But they had a wonderful headline that said, Trump ran on ending war. What happens if there's a new war? So on their front page now, they're just creating problems that don't exist. It's really wonderful. And the thing is, they are convinced, because they only listen to themselves, because they talk to themselves, because Democrats talk to them and they talk to the Democrats, and it is a literal, not a literal, it is, the metaphor of an echo chamber is very exact. They are in an echo chamber. They don't know that. See, the thing is, it's not that conservatives are in the majority, but I do believe that the majority of people want to hear something like the truth. The majority of people don't want to make decisions based on non-reality. And that's the difference. They can tell, even people, there are liberals, I know liberals like this. Every time I'm reading the New York Times and I think, who believes this crap? I can always think of 1 or 2 people who are going like, yeah, it was right there in the New York Times. You know, I know people who just buy everything they're selling, swallow everything they're fed. But most people, I really do believe, want to get at something like the facts, because without the facts, you can't know what they're doing. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Andrew Klavan Show. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all our future content.